Ladies and gentlemen, a person's words are windows into their own mind, and when someone hurls an insult at you, it says far more about them than it does about you. The moment someone resorts to name-calling, mockery, or personal attacks, they are revealing something about themselves, perhaps their insecurity, their frustration, or their need for dominance. The content of the insult may appear to be about you, but the deeper truth is that it originates entirely from the speaker. You are merely a canvas upon which they project their own weaknesses and inner turmoil. Consider the nature of an insult. If someone were truly secure in themselves, if they had genuine inner peace, why would they feel the need to tear another person down? A person who is strong in character has no desire to belittle others because they derive their confidence from within, not from external validation. But when someone insults, they are often attempting to achieve something, perhaps a feeling of superiority, perhaps a release for their own dissatisfaction with life. Their words are not rational assessments, they are emotional outbursts disguised as judgments. An insult is, at its core, an attempt to provoke a reaction. Those who feel powerless seek power through the control of others' emotions. If they can make you feel small, if they can make you angry, if they can force you into defending yourself, they have succeeded in manipulating your state of mind. This is why the truly strong do not engage in petty verbal battles. They recognize that the insulter is not delivering wisdom, nor are they revealing some hidden truth about their target. Instead, they are revealing a weakness in themselves, the need to lash out in order to feel significant. Imagine a man standing in front of a mirror, shouting insults at his reflection. This is what an insulter does, though they may not realize it. Every insult they throw at another is merely an echo of their own thoughts about themselves. A man who calls others weak often harbors deep fears about his own strength. A person who ridicules others for their appearance is usually insecure about their own. A person who frequently accuses others of being failures is often haunted by their own sense of inadequacy. The insult, then, is a confession wrapped in an attack. Understanding this truth allows you to rise above insults with complete indifference. If a child throws a tantrum, do you take their words seriously? If a man drunk with rage shouts nonsense at the sky, does the sky respond? The wise person sees insults for what they are, nothing more than noise, signifying nothing. If you do not grant them power, they remain powerless. This is why responding with silence or composure is so effective. When you do not react with anger or hurt, the insulter is left with nothing. Their words, which they hoped would shake you, instead bounce harmlessly off. And in that moment, everyone watching, including the insulter themselves, sees the truth. The insult had no weight. The person who spoke it is the one burdened by their own words, not you. There is a reason why the most respected leaders, philosophers, and thinkers throughout history have chosen not to engage in petty verbal attacks. They understand that to respond is to dignify the insult, to grant it value it does not deserve. A person who is insulted and retaliates is playing the same game as the insulter, stepping onto their level. But a person who remains calm forces the insulter to confront an uncomfortable reality, that their words do not hold the power they assumed. It is also worth considering that people often insult when they themselves are in pain. A person who is content with their life does not waste time or energy tearing others down. But a person who is struggling, who is unhappy, who feels powerless, often seeks to regain a sense of control by lashing out. They believe that by making others feel small, they can feel bigger. Yet this is an illusion. No amount of insult can change one's own inner dissatisfaction. No amount of verbal aggression can make up for a lack of self-worth. This is why the cycle of insults and retaliation is endless, because those who insult are not seeking truth. They are seeking relief from their own struggles, however temporary. When you recognize that an insult is a reflection of the person delivering it, you are free from its weight. You no longer feel the need to defend yourself because you understand that the words were never really about you in the first place. Instead, you can observe the situation with clarity, perhaps even with amusement, seeing the insulter for what they truly are, a person grappling with their own insecurities, their own frustrations, their own need to feel powerful in a world where they often feel powerless. Some may argue that insults contain some element of truth, and that is why they sting. But even if an insult is based on a real characteristic or flaw, the intent behind it is what matters. A wise person gives constructive criticism with kindness and sincerity. An insulter, on the other hand, speaks with malice. Their goal is not to help but to harm, not to enlighten but to diminish. When you recognize this, even a seemingly accurate insult loses its ability to wound. The key to dealing with insults, then, is not to counterattack, not to defend, but to simply see them for what they are, reflections of the one who speaks them. You are not obligated to carry their burden. You do not have to accept their projected insecurities as your own. The moment you truly understand this, you become untouchable. Insults lose their sting. The insulter is left shouting into the void, while you remain unmoved, walking forward with the quiet confidence of one who knows that their worth is not determined by the words of the insecure. Remaining emotionally detached in the face of insults or provocation is a powerful demonstration of inner strength and self-mastery. When someone seeks to offend or belittle you, their true goal is often not to express a valid critique, but to trigger an emotional reaction. They wish to see you flustered, defensive, or angry because it gives them a sense of control over you. The moment you allow yourself to be emotionally affected, you have handed over your power. But when you remain calm and unbothered, you strip their words of any significance and expose their attempt at manipulation. Emotions, especially anger and frustration, cloud judgment. When a person is insulted, their immediate instinct might be to lash out in return. This is a natural response, as humans are wired to defend their dignity. However, reacting emotionally does not demonstrate strength. It demonstrates that the insulter has successfully dictated your state of mind. When you respond with aggression or distress, you confirm that their words had weight. You validate their insult by showing that it affected you. This is precisely what they want, to pull you into a battle where logic and reason take a back seat to impulsive emotion. A calm person, on the other hand, possesses a kind of invulnerability. If an insult does not provoke a reaction, then what power does it hold? Imagine a man throwing stones into a vast ocean. No matter how many he throws, the ocean remains undisturbed, its depth unshaken. This is the effect of emotional detachment. When someone hurls insults at you, your lack of emotional response makes their effort meaningless. They expect a reaction, they expect validation of their words, but when they receive none, they are left exposed, looking foolish, desperate, or weak. It is important to recognize that people often insult others not because they genuinely believe their words, but because they are seeking to project their own insecurities outward. Their insult is not a reflection of truth, but a reflection of their own state of mind. If a person were truly content, truly at peace, they would not feel the need to tear others down. Their words are a distraction from their own unresolved inner conflicts. When you react emotionally, you allow yourself to be dragged into their chaos. But when you refuse to engage, when you remain calm, you highlight the contrast between their instability and your composure. This contrast, more than any verbal rebuttal, makes clear who truly holds power in the situation. Emotional control is not the same as passivity. Some may mistakenly believe that refusing to react means allowing oneself to be walked over. This is not the case. True strength does not lie in outward displays of dominance, but in the ability to remain unshaken. When a person insults you, your silence or composed demeanor does not indicate weakness. Rather, it forces them to confront their own insignificance. They expected to provoke you, to dictate your behavior, but instead they are met with stillness. This stillness is a reflection of true confidence. It shows that you are in control of yourself, that you are not dependent on others' words to determine your self-worth. There is a reason why the most respected figures in history, whether in philosophy, leadership, or personal conduct, have practiced emotional discipline. They understood that allowing oneself to be ruled by emotions makes one vulnerable to manipulation. The moment you react impulsively, you become predictable. You can be provoked. You can be led into battles not of your choosing, and you can be forced into a position of defense. But the person who remains calm cannot be controlled. They choose when and how to respond, if they choose to respond at all. One of the most effective ways to neutralize an insult is to respond with an unexpected calmness. Instead of showing anger or distress, a simple, composed question like "Are you okay?" or "Why does this bother you so much?" redirects the focus back to the insulter. Rather than escalating the situation, it forces them to reflect, even if only for a brief moment. More often than not, they will find themselves at a loss. Their goal was to throw you off balance, but now they are the ones who must justify the hostility. When you do not react emotionally, you also maintain control over your own mental well-being. Anger and frustration are exhausting emotions. They drain energy, cloud thinking, and leave you feeling worse than before. By refusing to be emotionally affected, you conserve your energy for things that truly matter. You do not let fleeting words from another dictate the course of your mood or your day. This is a form of self-discipline, and like any discipline, it strengthens over time. The more you practice emotional detachment, the easier it becomes. It is also helpful to remember that insults lose their sting when you refuse to take them personally. Most insults are not a reflection of reality, but a reflection of the person delivering them. When someone insults your intelligence, appearance, or abilities, ask yourself, does their opinion define you? Does their insult change who you are? The answer is always no. You are the same person before and after the insult. The only thing that changes is how much weight you choose to give to their words. By mastering emotional control, you shift the power dynamic in every interaction. The insulter relies on your reaction to feel successful. When you do not give them what they seek, they are left with nothing. This is why remaining calm in the face of provocation is one of the most effective ways to make a disrespectful person look small. They came looking for a fight, but they leave with only their own frustration. The ability to control your emotions is one of the greatest strengths a person can develop. It allows you to navigate life with clarity, free from the influence of those who seek to disrupt your peace. It grants you the ability to remain composed in the face of insults, to rise above petty conflicts, and to move through the world with a quiet, unshakable confidence. In this way, refusing to react emotionally is not just about dealing with insults, it is about cultivating a mindset that allows you to remain undisturbed, no matter what chaos surrounds you. When confronted with insults or disrespect, the instinctive reaction for many people is to retaliate with anger or defensiveness. However, reacting with calmness or responding with a question is a far more powerful approach. This response not only disarms the aggressor, but also shifts the dynamic of the interaction, making them confront their own hostility. A calm response demonstrates self-control and confidence, while a well-placed question forces the insulter to reflect, often exposing their insecurity or lack of reason. When a person insults you, their goal is to provoke an emotional reaction. They expect you to become flustered, to lash out, or to feel humiliated. By responding with calmness, you deny them this satisfaction. Instead of playing into their attempt to manipulate your emotions, you stand firm, unaffected. This response immediately changes the power dynamic. The insulter now finds themselves in a position where they must work harder to get the reaction they desire. But the more you maintain your composure, the more their efforts appear desperate and ineffective. Calmness is an expression of strength. It communicates that you are not easily shaken, that your sense of self-worth is not dependent on the opinions or words of others. When someone hurls an insult, and you meet it with indifference, it is they who begin to look weak. Their anger or rudeness was meant to exert control over you, but instead they find themselves exposed as the only emotional party in the exchange. In this way, your calm response becomes a mirror, reflecting their insecurity back at them. A particularly effective way to handle insults with calmness is through the strategic use of questions. Instead of countering aggression with aggression, asking a simple question forces the insulter to justify their behavior. This can be done in several ways depending on the situation. If someone calls you a name or makes a cutting remark, responding with a neutral question like "What makes you say that?" or "Why does this matter to you?" forces them to pause. Rather than escalating the situation, they now have to think about their words. In many cases, they won't have a logical answer because their insult was never based on reason but on emotion. Another powerful question is simply, "Are you okay?" This response is particularly disarming because it shifts the focus from you to them. It subtly implies that their behavior is unusual or that they must be dealing with some internal issue to be acting this way. More often than not, this will catch the insulter off guard. They expected anger or defensiveness, but instead they are now in the spotlight. They must now explain why they felt the need to be rude or disrespectful. This tactic not only neutralizes the insult but also exposes the emotional state of the insulter. Some insults are designed to make you feel inferior, but asking a question in return forces the insulter to justify themselves. If someone mocks your achievements or belittles your work, calmly asking what have you accomplished that you're proud of, or what do you think would be a better way to handle this, places the burden back on them. More often than not, people who insult others do so because they feel inadequate themselves. By making them reflect on their own actions, you subtly highlight their insecurity. Another way to use questions effectively is to feign confusion. When an insult is directed at you, responding with "I'm not sure I understand, could you explain what you mean?" forces the insulter to reconsider their words. If their insult was based on exaggeration or pettiness, they now have to either backtrack or try to justify it in a way that makes sense. Most insults, when scrutinized, lose their intended effect because they are not rooted in logic, but in an emotional desire to hurt or belittle. By making them articulate their reasoning, you strip away the power of their words. Remaining calm and responding with questions also makes you appear unshakable in the eyes of onlookers. In many cases, insults are hurled in public settings where the insulter hopes to gain social validation. They believe that by making you look weak, they will gain the approval or laughter of those around them. However, when you remain composed and respond with thoughtfulness instead of hostility, you turn the situation against them. Instead of looking clever or dominant, the insulter now appears immature, insecure, or desperate for attention. The crowd, rather than siding with them, begins to respect you for your poise. It is important to remember that responding with calmness does not mean allowing yourself to be mistreated. Rather, it is a way to maintain control over the situation and your own emotions. When you react angrily, you grant the insulter power over you. But when you meet hostility with calmness and strategic questioning, you take that power away from them. Instead of being drawn into a pointless confrontation, you rise above it, showing that their words have no effect on you. This approach also helps in personal relationships and professional settings. If a colleague, friend, or family member makes a passive-aggressive remark, reacting with a question rather than defensiveness can prevent unnecessary conflict. A calm response like "Is there something you'd like to discuss?" or "Are you trying to be helpful?" makes them reconsider their words. It subtly reminds them that their attempt to undermine you has been noticed when tossed, without resorting to an argument. Over time, the habit of responding with calmness or questions becomes second nature. Instead of feeling the need to prove yourself in the face of insults, you begin to recognize them for what they are: an attempt at emotional manipulation by someone who feels the need to tear others down. And once you understand this, you realize that the best response is not anger or defensiveness, but composed detachment. When you are calm, you remain in control. When you respond with a question, you shift the focus back onto the insulter, making them question themselves instead of you. By mastering this approach, you not only diffuse tense situations, but also cultivate a reputation for wisdom and composure. People will begin to recognize that you are not easily provoked, that your sense of self-worth does not rely on the validation or attacks of others. And in doing so, you establish yourself as someone who commands respect not through loudness or aggression, but through quiet, unshakable confidence. Confidence does not need to announce itself. It exists quietly, rooted in self-assurance, unaffected by the opinions of others. True confidence does not seek validation, nor does it demand attention. It simply is. On the other hand, insecurity often disguises itself in noise through boasting, aggression, or the belittling of others. Those who are unsure of themselves feel the need to make their presence known, to seek external confirmation of their worth. The contrast between these two mindsets is striking. Where confidence is calm and steady, insecurity is loud and desperate. A confident person has nothing to prove. They do not feel the need to seek approval, to dominate conversations, or to put others down to feel superior. Their worth is not determined by external validation, but by an inner sense of self. Because they trust in their abilities and value, they do not waste time convincing others of it. They know who they are, and that knowledge is enough. Insecurity, however, thrives on external validation. Those who lack true confidence often attempt to compensate by exaggerating their achievements, speaking over others, or constantly seeking attention. They rely on the approval of others to feel significant. This is why insecure people often feel the need to assert themselves loudly, making sure everyone notices them. They fear that without this recognition, they will be overlooked or deemed unworthy. The difference between confidence and insecurity is often most visible in how people handle criticism or opposition. A confident person is not threatened by disagreement. They do not feel the need to attack those who challenge them, nor do they see differing opinions as a personal affront. They listen, they consider, and if necessary they respond with reasoned thought rather than emotional reaction. An insecure person, however, cannot tolerate even the slightest challenge. They react with defensiveness, hostility, or even mockery because any form of opposition feels like a direct attack on their fragile sense of self-worth. Instead of engaging in meaningful discourse, they lash out, attempting to overpower others with volume or aggression. Confidence is seen in actions rather than words. A person who is truly skilled does not need to constantly remind others of their abilities. A great leader does not need to demand respect. Their actions naturally command it. A person who is truly happy does not feel the need to constantly proclaim their happiness. When something is genuine, it speaks for itself. Insecurity, on the other hand, is often wrapped in excessive display. The person who constantly brags about their success may actually fear failure. The person who belittles others may secretly feel inadequate. The person who loudly insists they are happy may be trying to convince themselves as much as others. In social settings, the contrast between confidence and insecurity becomes even more apparent. A confident person is comfortable with silence. They do not feel the need to fill every moment with words or force themselves into conversations to be noticed. They are content with observing, listening, and speaking when they have something meaningful to contribute. An insecure person, however, often finds silence unbearable. They equate it with being ignored or overlooked, so they seek to dominate discussions, often interrupting or steering conversations toward themselves. Their need to be the center of attention stems from a deep-rooted fear of being insignificant. Another clear distinction between confidence and insecurity lies in how people treat others. Confident individuals uplift those around them. They do not see others as threats but as equals or even as individuals to learn from. Because they are secure in themselves, they do not need to bring others down to feel superior. In contrast, insecure people often resort to insults, gossip, or condescension as a way to assert dominance. They feel threatened by others' success or happiness and try to undermine it to feel better about themselves. Confidence allows a person to move through life with a quiet strength. They do not seek confrontation, but they are not afraid of it either. They do not demand respect, but they earn it effortlessly. Their presence is felt without them needing to impose it. This is why truly confident individuals are often described as having a strong yet calming presence. Their energy does not drain those around them. Rather, it inspires and reassures. Insecurity, on the other hand, creates chaos. It demands attention, creates unnecessary conflicts, and drains energy from those who encounter it. Loud, aggressive behavior may create the illusion of strength, but it is actually a defense mechanism. The louder a person proclaims their superiority, the more they reveal their deep-seated doubts. Strength is not proven through noise but through composure. One of the greatest advantages of true confidence is the freedom it provides. A confident person is not controlled by the opinions of others. They do not need to constantly adjust their behavior to seek approval or avoid criticism. They live on their own terms, driven by internal motivation rather than external pressure. An insecure person, however, is constantly at the mercy of others' perceptions. Their self-worth fluctuates based on praise or criticism, leaving them in a perpetual state of instability. This is why confidence is so powerful it cannot be taken away by external forces. It remains steady in the face of insults, failures, or setbacks. It does not seek validation because it does not require it. Insecurity, however, is fragile. It relies on constant reinforcement and is easily shattered when that reinforcement is removed. The most ironic aspect of insecurity is that it often masquerades as confidence. Loudness, arrogance, and dominance are sometimes mistaken for self-assurance, but they are actually symptoms of fear. True confidence does not need to announce itself. It is recognized in the way a person carries themselves, in the way they handle adversity, and in the way they treat others. It is felt rather than heard. By understanding this contrast, one can navigate social interactions with greater awareness. When confronted with loud, aggressive behavior, it becomes easier to see it for what it is, an attempt to mask insecurity. And when one encounters true confidence, it is unmistakable in its quiet strength. The goal, then, is not to become louder, to seek more attention, or to prove oneself to others. The goal is to cultivate a sense of self so unshakable that no amount of noise can disrupt it. When someone attempts to insult or belittle another person, they often do so with the assumption that it will elevate their own status. They believe that by putting someone else down, they will appear stronger, smarter, or more dominant. However, in reality, public perception tends to work against those who engage in such behavior. Instead of making them look powerful, their actions often expose insecurity, weakness, or even pettiness. The way others perceive them shifts, and they unintentionally damage their own reputation rather than the person they intended to insult. One of the key reasons this happens is that people naturally respect composure and emotional control. When an individual resorts to insults or public humiliation, it signals a lack of self-discipline. It suggests that they are unable to handle disagreements or differences without resorting to aggression. Those who witness such behavior often recognize it as a sign of insecurity rather than confidence. People admire those who remain calm under pressure and can handle conflicts with grace. By contrast, they look down on those who rely on insults and attacks to assert themselves. Another factor at play is that insults and personal attacks often reveal more about the insulter than the target. When someone publicly belittles another person, it invites others to question their motivations. People begin to wonder why this person feels the need to tear someone else down. Are they jealous? Are they insecure about their own abilities? Do they lack the emotional intelligence to handle situations maturely? These questions shift attention away from the insult itself and place scrutiny on the person delivering it. Instead of being seen as strong, they are perceived as fragile and overly invested in proving something. Social dynamics also play a significant role in shaping public perception. In most cultures, kindness, respect, and humility are valued traits. Those who go out of their way to demean others violate these unspoken social norms. As a result, they risk alienating people rather than gaining their approval. Even if some individuals laugh or momentarily enjoy the spectacle of an insult, the long-term impression left by such behavior is usually negative. People remember how someone makes others feel, and they tend to associate those who insult others with hostility and negativity. Additionally, public insults often backfire because they create sympathy for the target. When an individual is attacked unfairly, bystanders are more likely to side with them rather than the aggressor. This is especially true if the person being insulted remains composed and does not retaliate in an equally aggressive manner. If they respond with grace, indifference, or a measured question, they highlight the contrast between their own maturity and the insulter's childishness. This makes the aggressor look even worse in the eyes of others. Another important aspect of public perception is credibility. When someone frequently engages in insults, their words begin to lose weight. If they are constantly belittling others, people recognize that their criticisms are not rooted in truth, but in habit. Their insults become predictable and are no longer taken seriously. On the other hand, when someone who is usually fair and composed expresses a criticism, it holds far more credibility because it is rare and likely to be based on genuine observation rather than personal insecurity. The manner in which a person presents their opinions also affects how they are perceived. A well-articulated argument, delivered with confidence and respect, is far more persuasive than an emotional outburst filled with insults. Those who rely on personal attacks weaken their own positions because they come across as irrational or overly emotional. Instead of being seen as authoritative, they appear desperate for validation. In contrast, someone who engages in thoughtful, respectful discourse earns admiration, even from those who may disagree with them. Public perception is also shaped by consistency. If someone frequently insults or belittles others, they develop a reputation for it. Over time, people stop taking them seriously and instead begin to expect such behavior. They may be tolerated for entertainment value, but they are not respected. Eventually, they become known not for their intelligence or wit, but for their negativity. This is a damaging label, as it makes people less likely to trust or want to associate with them. Ironically, the people who insult others the most often crave respect and admiration the most. They insult others in an attempt to assert dominance, but instead they push people away. This creates a cycle where they feel even more insecure and lash out more, further damaging their reputation. The very thing they seek approval from others is the thing they drive away with their behavior. Another way public perception works against those who insult others is through the long-term consequences of their actions. While an insult might provide a momentary feeling of superiority, its effects linger far beyond the initial interaction. People remember how they were treated, and reputations are built over time. A single harsh remark may not ruin someone's image, but a pattern of such behavior does. Eventually they find themselves isolated, avoided or dismissed as someone not worth engaging with. In professional and social settings, the consequences of a damaged reputation are significant. People prefer to work with, befriend and support those who bring positivity and professionalism into an environment. Those who are known for tearing others down instead of lifting them up find themselves excluded from opportunities and circles of influence. Even those who once laughed at their insults eventually distance themselves, fearing association with someone who has a reputation for negativity. One of the most powerful ways to counter an insulter is simply to let public perception work against them. There is no need to fight back with equal aggression or to defend oneself frantically. If the insult is unfounded or petty, it will eventually reveal itself as such. By maintaining composure, one allows the insulter's own behavior to be their downfall. Their attempt to look strong and superior only exposes their insecurities and desperation. Ultimately, public perception favors those who demonstrate confidence, respect, and emotional intelligence. Insulting others may provide a brief illusion of power, but in the long run, it diminishes the credibility and reputation of the person who engages in it. The more they attack others, the more they expose their own flaws. In the end, those who seek to humiliate others often find that they have only humiliated themselves. A wise man understands that not every battle is worth fighting. He knows that his time, energy, and peace of mind are more valuable than engaging in meaningless conflicts. Walking away is not a sign of weakness, but of strength, restraint, and clarity. It takes far more wisdom to disengage from a futile argument than to stay and fight for the sake of ego. A fool argues to prove a point. A wise man walks away to preserve his dignity. When confronted with insults, disrespect, or provocation, the natural impulse for many is to retaliate. The ego demands justice, a response that reasserts control or superiority. But wisdom recognizes that true power lies in restraint. Those who insult or provoke others often seek a reaction. They thrive on attention, validation, or the illusion of dominance. By refusing to engage, the wise man denies them what they seek, exposing their actions as desperate and meaningless. Walking away is an act of self-mastery. It signifies control over emotions rather than being controlled by them. Those who react impulsively to every slight or insult allow themselves to be manipulated by others. They surrender their peace of mind to external forces, allowing anger, pride, or insecurity to dictate their actions. The wise man, however, understands that his emotions are his own to govern. By choosing not to engage, he demonstrates that he is the master of himself, unaffected by the petty attempts of others to disturb his inner balance. A wise man also values his time. Life is too short to waste on pointless arguments, petty disputes, or the opinions of those who contribute nothing to personal growth. He recognizes that engaging in a meaningless battle does not change the mind of the aggressor. It only drains his own energy. Arguments driven by ego rarely lead to resolution. They only escalate into further conflict. Instead of wasting time trying to win a battle that serves no purpose, he invests his energy into things that matter: personal growth, meaningful relationships, and pursuits that bring fulfillment. Walking away also preserves one's dignity. Responding to an insult with aggression lowers a person to the same level as the insulter. When someone hurls insults or disrespect, they often do so from a place of insecurity. If a wise man were to engage, he would be validating their attempt to drag him down. Instead, by walking away, he demonstrates that their words have no effect on him. He refuses to entertain their negativity, and in doing so, maintains his own self-respect. There is great wisdom in understanding that silence can be more powerful than words. When a person argues, they often believe that their words will force the other party to back down or change their stance. However, silence can be far more disarming. When faced with hostility, the wise man does not need to justify himself. His actions, composure, and presence speak louder than any words could. A well-placed silence can leave the aggressor questioning themselves, realizing that their attempts to provoke were ineffective. The power of walking away extends beyond verbal conflicts. In life, people encounter situations, relationships, and environments that no longer serve them. Whether it be toxic friendships, unfulfilling jobs, or draining social circles, the wise man understands when it is time to leave. He does not cling to what is harmful out of fear or pride. He recognizes that true strength lies in knowing when to let go. Holding on to what no longer serves personal growth only leads to stagnation and frustration. Walking away requires a deep sense of self-worth. It means recognizing that one does not need to prove anything to anyone. Those who engage in unnecessary battles often do so out of insecurity, the need to be right, to be acknowledged, or to assert dominance. A wise man, however, is secure in himself. He does not seek validation through conflict. He does not need to prove his intelligence, strength, or superiority to anyone. His confidence comes from within, allowing him to walk away without hesitation. In many cases, walking away is the most effective way to expose the weakness of those who seek to provoke. A person who constantly insults, belittles, or creates drama does so because they crave attention. When met with indifference, their power diminishes. They are left with their own negativity, forced to confront the emptiness of their actions. By refusing to engage, the wise man not only protects himself but also reveals the pettiness of the one trying to bring him down. It is important to note that walking away is not about avoidance or fear. It is not an act of cowardice but of conscious decision-making. There are times when confrontation is necessary, when one must stand their ground for justice, integrity, or principle. However, a wise man knows the difference between battles worth fighting and those best left behind. He chooses his battles carefully, ensuring that his energy is directed toward causes that align with his values and purpose. Ultimately, walking away is not about giving up. It is about choosing oneself. It is about recognizing that true strength lies not in fighting every battle, but in knowing which battles are worth engaging in. A fool argues for the sake of pride, while a wise man walks away with his peace intact, unbothered by the noise of those who seek to bring him down. In the end, walking away is not about defeat, it is about wisdom. It is the quiet power of choosing peace over conflict, self-respect over validation, and purpose over distraction. A wise man understands that not every battle is worth fighting, and his energy is too valuable to be wasted on those who seek to provoke. True strength is found not in the noise of argument, but in the silence of self-assurance. By walking away, he does not lose, he rises above.